Susie and Jonathan Lamb, who were both vice presidents at one point, claimed that while they were students at Dayar, their mother, the late President Joni Lamb, and her associates repeatedly tormented and spiritually tortured them. The most obvious accusation is that on July 11, 2023, Joni unexpectedly summoned the couple to a meeting with Jimmy Evans, the founder of Iksam Marriage. Joni humiliated her son by accusing him of being infatuated with his wife, and on a video that Jonathan and Susie included in Roy's report, Evans informed them that they were obligated to bow to their mother because she spoke for God. Jonathan prayed so that he may hear God's voice. Evan responded in order to discern God's voice. So I can't hear from God, I have to hear from her. Subsequently, Jonathan inquired beyond Dare. He responded, what she says is, God and Dare, this is the voice of God and Dare. As TR previously reported, the contentious gathering took place almost 2 years following Jonathan's discovery of a family member engaging in sexual activity with his daughter, which led him to accuse the individual of molestation. Joni and her late husband, Dayar co-founder Marcus Lamb, swiftly supported the family member and claimed his innocence, according to Jonathan and Susie. Because of this, there was a schism in the family. After an internal inquiry cleared the family member, Marcus informed Jonathan and his brother-in-law Jonathan J.D. Weiss a few weeks later, in late August 2012. Later on, Jonathan and Susie learned that the inquiry had several serious shortcomings. In November of 2021. Marcus passed very abruptly from problems stemming from coup of ID. Doug Weiss, a sex therapist and regular on daytime television, was Joni's husband as of June 10, 2023. No, Jay Weiss is not Doug's relative. Doug and his 30-year married wife decided to end their marriage on January 27, 2022, which was hardly 2 months after Marcus passed away. During their meeting with Evans in July 2023, Jonathan and Susie said that Evans tried to get them to publicly endorse Joan's second marriage. All of Joan's children and their spouses disapproved of her marriage to Weiss, believing that Joni had committed adultery by marrying him and that Weiss lacked scriptural justification for divorcing his wife, as reported by Jonathan and Susie. An emotional letter imploring Joan's family to step in was written by Denise Boggs, a longtime friend of Dayar, just 2 months before the wedding. Not only was Boggs familiar with T, but she had also presided over Doug and Lisa Weiss's marriage counseling. Divide into she had confided in Joni about her concerns regarding Weiss. According to Boggs's writing, but Joni refused to listen to me at this point. Because Weiss is a wolf in sheep's clothes, the Bong claimed Joni was being fooled by him. Bong stated that he lacks the qualifications for such a prominent role, and she elaborated by saying that Joni had reservations about divorce until the dater platform deceived her. On one of the most widely watched Christian television networks in the nation, the adversary has effectively mocked the marital relationship. According to Jonathan, 2 days after receiving the letter, he gathered his family together to speak with Joni. However, Joni only allowed each individual 60 seconds to express their emotions. Finally, she uttered the words, "All I see from us is fear," before bolting out the door to board Doug's plane to New York. After Doug and Joni were married, Jonathan remarked, though they were still unhappy about the marriage, Jonathan and Susie were requested to read a viewer's comment on July 5, 2023, that lauded Joan's recent marriage to Towai. It seems that Joni was really offended that they declined to do so because they believed it would be seen as supporting the marriage. As a result, Joni met with Evans, who in his 2017 book Broken Trust consultant and pastoral coach for Broken Trust, equated Joan's desires to those of God and Satan. According to Remy D., spiritual abuse occurs when someone exploits their faith or perceived connection with God to manipulate behavior for their personal benefit. Jonathan was asked, if God came to you right now and told you that you made a mistake, would you fix it? On the meeting tape, he and Susie claimed that Evans and Joni were engaged in precisely that. Happening, naturally, without a doubt, even though Jonathan responds, you aren't according to Evans, the answer is no yet. God remains silent and unheard. As Jonathan explains to Joey, God spoke to you through me. According to Joey, he spoke to you through Jimmy. Additionally, Joni and Evans bolstered their control over Jonathan and Susie by drawing on their extensive ministry expertise. Jonathan, it's a spirit that refuses to listen to both authority and experience, adds Evan. Was the Spirit speaking to you? Working with couples is something I've done for the past 41 years as a pastor. Not in my opinion, Joni says. When compared to the other people here in this conference, your level of experience is negligible. After Joni's absence, Jonathan wanted to know who was responsible for her and what her role was, so he approached Evans with the question. This is Evans's response: I'm on the board, dear Jonathan. Responses: the sole members of the board that day were Jonathan, Joni, and Tom Callender, a lawyer and Joan's longtime friend. TRR said, yeah, but individually you're not her accountability, individually you're her employee. No one else is to blame for her deeds, according to Evans, who claims to be God's voice in Dayar. Evans addresses Jonathan's concerns by pointing to Romans 13 as evidence that we are obligated to obey all forms of authority as they were established by God. Once again, Jonathan raises an objection, claiming that it is none of your concern that they are inquiring about her day or act's responsibility. You should listen to what she says and leave if you can't, says Evans. Joni concludes, tell them what the Lord told you about stubbornness and what it leads to. Jesus Christ reportedly said to Saul, rebellion is the sin of witchcraft, Evans 3:16. It likens being stubborn to worshiping an idol, since it is as sinful as idolatry. This is due to the fact that you have been adoring your own opinion with Doug Weiss earlier in the discussion, which is a hallmark of stubbornness. Jonathan is also warned of what is to come as Joni accuses him of elevating his viewpoint to the status of an idol. God wouldn't be pleased with this, explains Joni, and you've opened yourself up to demonic activity in your family and with your kids by your rebellion against me. He points out, both Jonathan and Susie see it as a kind of rebellion, thus they disagree. According to Joni, you'll bring a curse upon you and your kids. This happened throughout the meeting. Using the sex abuse allegations from 2021 as an example, they further state that Susie is behaving emotionally. This proves that Susie's ideas are not trustworthy. Knowing that a family member would prefer that I not disclose the issue to you, I will not do so. As Joni explains to Evans, a terrible incident occurred in our family, and both Susie and Jonathan were certain that a family member was doing something he wasn't. However, she drove that item for a long time. Everything is the same, everything is the same. After 15 minutes of tension, Joni and Susie get into an argument over Susie's decision not to read the viewer comment, which reads, if I'm not comfortable, then I have to stick with my convictions. Joni hears from Susie, you have no choice except to accept or reject it. If a viewer has something wonderful to say about you, Susie, or anyone else that's fine with Joni, she tells her, her involvement is irrelevant. To occupy your time as you peruse a viewer's feedback, I'm telling it as a lie. According to Susie, you have no principles. According to Joni, I'm reading it not a lie, according to Susie. Oh, I see. According to Joni, if I say something I don't believe, it's a lie, the matter is unrelated to you, Susie states. A viewer comment, she said. The comment belongs to the viewer, not Susie. Susie warns me not to return, while Joni says I mustn't compromise my beliefs. If you can't find anything positive to say about Doug, you're fired, Joni says. You are not welcome here. As for the green room, you're out after Susie's firing. Jonathan and Susie's show on Dare proves that you're not going to accomplish anything. As Jimmy and Joni keep staring at Jonathan, they keep asking him to read the letter again. Jonathan begs Joni to fulfill his every desire. If you promise to obey my commands, that's all I need to hear. According to Joni, it's over. Nothing else would be acceptable to me. Your religious views are irrelevant to me. In response to Evans's question about whether Jonathan would read the comment today if requested, Jonathan says he will cave to Joni. See, now you're in trouble with her, Evans adds after a lengthy silence. When Susie raises an objection, Joni informs her that she is being dubbed a bad guy. Babe, Susie, you are well aware that you have him in your grasp. I'm terrified of them. Susie informs Jonathan that they are harboring negative ideas. As soon as you start talking like that, I'll have you in my sights. Your gaze fell upon him. I felt like I was squeezing him when I gazed at him with sadness, according to Joni. Everything happening right now is terrible. He adds, what's evil is you and the spirit that's driving you, to which Susie replies, no, what's evil is you. Susie exits the room as the conference comes to a close, leaving Jonathan and his mom all by themselves. The consequences of crossing that queue with Susie will be severe, Evans Joni warns Jonathan. Maintain your position. Even if Jonathan tries to inform his mom that Susie and he are in agreement, she ignores him. The man warns her, "You are about to catch hell, so you handle her." What Joni means is, "You're her covering, handle her." Then Joni tells Evans this is going to be his Alamo, meaning he'll take care of it and her if he wants to. "I can let him know that your leadership position at Dayar will likely be determined by how you manage that." Jonathan was let go from Dayar following the meeting. He expressed his overwhelming sense of helplessness and the fact that things had spiraled out of control in an email he sent to Joni. "We need to have this conversation immediately. I never imagined I'd be in this position. Payroll won't be touched for now," Joni said. She promises to inform Jonathan in 18 months when she is prepared to broach the subject again. After Dayar's bullying and threats escalated, Jonathan was let go from his job on November 16, 2024, according to Susie and Jonathan. In our next tale, we will delve further into the events of those 18 months. Trey reached out to Dayar and asked him detailed questions regarding the narrative. Dayar said that this afternoon Joni would release a formal statement. After his father passed away, Jonathan was not named future president of Dayar, and Joni accuses him of launching a smear campaign to discredit him. Additionally, Joni discloses part of Jonathan's email in which he attempts to blackmail his way into becoming Dayar's president in the future. Even while we still want to put this incident in the past, ALS also requires transparency regarding security. Having a clear understanding of our futures at Dayar is important to us. So we propose that Joni Dayar and I sign a new contract outlining my responsibilities as president of Dayar and prohibiting Joni or any other director or officer from acting in a way that harms our jobs without a solid reason and the approval of a majority of the board of directors. Jonathan and Susie have informed us that in return for this agreement, we will not utilize, disseminate, or publish any audio recordings that could be embarrassing or damaging to Dayar, Joni, or our family. In response to the 13 demands made by Dayar, the pair declared that they would not divulge any audio recordings. This was not an act of blackmail, but rather their desire to be reinstated in their previous positions at Dayar. In order for the pair to consent to the deletion of any and all recordings documenting their encounters with Joni and Jimmy Evans, as well as any recordings documenting Joni's private conversations with Susie on her reluctance to read aloud on air. Jonathan clarified that he was not trying to usurp his mother's position when he mentioned becoming president of Dayar. Rather, he was outlining the succession plan his father had established in the event that Joni retired or passed away. Although Denise Boggs informed Jonathan and Susie that their relative had been cleared of molesting their daughter on November 18, 2023, Jonathan and Susie both noted that these conversations had already taken place before then. The Coops claim they lost interest in their careers and began to seek justice at that time.